I'm not very good with words. I never have been, and I'm not now. Even though you have spoken to me, I get tongue-tied, and my words get tangled. Then the Lord asked Moses, who makes a person's mouth? Who decides whether people speak or do not speak, hear or do not hear, see or do not see? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, I will be with you as you speak, and I will instruct you in what to say. But Moses again pleaded, Lord, please, send anyone else. Then the Lord became angry with Moses. All right, he said, what about your brother, Aaron the Levite? I know he speaks well, and look, he is on his way to meet you now. He will be delighted to see you. Talk to him and put the words in his mouth. I will be with both of you as you speak, and I will instruct you both in what to do. Aaron will be your spokesman to the people. He will be your mouthpiece, and you will stand in the place of God for him, telling him what to say. And take your shepherd's staff with you and use it to perform the miraculous signs that I have shown you. And so what we see here is that despite God showing Moses multiple times that he will be with him, Moses still argues with God. Moses claims that he isn't really good with words and that he never has been. But is that really true? I mean, we see 40 years earlier that he was clearly not bad with words when he spoke up against the Egyptians who were fighting against his people. And he also very clearly didn't have a hard time articulating his words when he wanted to argue against God. You see, Moses' perceived issues with speaking, it didn't even matter to God. The God who created the universe and who created the most eloquent speakers in history was on his side. God is so mighty that he can call the mute, he can call the deaf, and he can call the blind to be a part of his work. And so none of these issues, none of Moses' issues mattered in light of all that God can do. And so despite Moses' protests and his fears, God promises his presence and to give Moses the words to say. And as we go on, we start to see what is really happening with Moses. In verse 13, Moses finally says in response to God, Lord, please send anyone else. You see, Moses' issue wasn't really that he wasn't a great speaker, even if that might have actually been a little bit true. The real issue here was the condition of his heart. Moses was unwilling to do what God had asked him to do. You see, God didn't get angry when Moses questioned his worthiness of being a part of God's work. He didn't get angry with Moses when he questioned if he actually would be able to speak confidently and boldly in front of these people. But God did get angry when Moses was upset he was simply unwilling to do what God had asked him to do and to trust that God would grow in him the gifts and the talents that he needed for the task. And so in response, God sends Aaron to Moses, and it appears as if at first God is giving in by allowing Aaron to be the spokesperson. But really, God sends Aaron to lead with Moses more actually as a punishment to Moses instead. You see, when you look at the story of Aaron actually ended up being more of a problem for Moses than anything else. And throughout the first 5 books of the Bible, Aaron would cause so many different issues for Moses. Aaron was the one who led the Israelites in the worship of the golden calf. He's the one who made the calf, and he's the one who made the altar as well. And we also see that Aaron openly led a rebellion with their sister Miriam against Moses in Numbers chapter 12, verses 1 through 8, along with many other different rebellions. So Aaron was more of a thorn in Moses' side than anything else. And as we see time go on, Moses doesn't need Aaron to begin with at all. When we even get to the point where Moses is confronting Pharaoh, it is Moses that is talking. We don't really see Aaron talking at all. And so as time goes on, Aaron kind of disappears from the spotlight until Aaron eventually dies, and Moses is left to continue leading his people. And we watch this journey that Moses goes on, and he ends up becoming this incredible leader that is talked about all throughout Scripture. And at the very end of Deuteronomy, we find this beautiful eulogy that is reflecting on the life of Moses, his character, his giftings, and his status in Deuteronomy chapter 34, verses 10 through 12, where it says this: There has never been another prophet in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. The Lord sent him to perform all the miraculous signs and wonders in the land of Egypt against Pharaoh and all his servants and his entire land. With mighty power, Moses performed terrifying acts in the sight of all of Israel. And so, at the end of his life, Moses is described as someone who knew the Lord face to face. And he goes on and becomes this incredible leader, journeying with his people in the wilderness for 40 years. You see, is when Moses became willing, and his heart and his character became more and more shaped by God's heart and his desires, rather than his own stubborn and rebellious nature, that Moses would go on to become an incredible leader that God had always intended him to be. Scripture makes it very clear that until the coming of Jesus, no other character in Scripture encompassed and did the roles that Moses performed as well as he did. There was no one else that was greater than Moses. So his issue was never a lack of talent, but it was a lack of willingness. But when he became willing to do what God had called him to and God had asked him to, he went on to go and do some absolutely incredible things. And the same is true with us. Our issue most of the time is not an issue of a lack of talent or gifting. God has given us good gifts for his good purposes. The issue is that we, at times, are not willing to do what God asks us to do what we know what we should do. So what would happen if we actually took a step of faith, even in our doubts and fears, and said, I am going to say yes to God, even if it makes absolute no sense for me. I'm going to say yes to him and his plan for my life. I will trust him and I will follow him wherever he leads me and wherever he takes me. I will discover my gifts and abilities by simply saying yes, by simply giving him my next yes, by simply following him so that I can just be a living sacrifice, a living act of worship to him.